solo breakdown. Muckle everybody, my name is ParaDiddlePete, and today we are doing another Rudimental solo breakdown. Today's solo is solo number 5, out of the Rudimental Cookbook by Edward Freytag. Now, the other day I was talking to somebody and I was telling about how I do these solo breakdown videos and how I felt like it's really important to just be able to look at the solo first and kind of see what jumps out at you, so that way, you kind of have a bit of a better feel before you actually go to the drum and, actually practice. And they were like, okay, well, what do you look for? And I was like, just anything that jumps out at me. And they're like, okay, well, what considers something to jump out at you? Like, what are you looking to jump out at you? And I was like, that's a good question. I don't know. I just kind of look at it and I kind of do it all at once. So I kind of figured out these 3 things that I am doing when I'm looking at these solos at a first glance kind of thing. So the first thing that I'm looking for is any type of rhythmical patterns or accent patterns and them repeating throughout the composition. So that's what I'm looking for. Straight off the bat, like, I'm not looking for rudiments, I'm not looking for dynamics or any of that. I'm looking for any type of rhythmical patterns, accent patterns, and those patterns repeating throughout the solo. That's the first thing that we're looking for. The second thing I'm looking for is dynamics. What kind of dynamics do I see? Are there crescendos? Are there decrescendos? How low do I need to get? How big do I need to get? That kind of thing. Now, the last thing I'm looking for is the rudiments. What rudiments do I see, and what rudiments do I need to practice before I actually get to this? Now, I realize that there could be some crossover between these things. I mean, you could have a special accent pattern that's on like a paradiddle or something, and now you need to practice that accent pattern on top of the paradiddle, and I totally understand that. But in general, this is what I'm doing, and that's how we're going to approach this solo today, is that we're going to look at it through the lens of those 3 things. Now, know that the more you do this, the less you'll have to break it down and be like, okay, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3, and you'll be able to just kind of do it all at once. But for the sake of this video, we're going to kind of do it like that, where we are just going to break down 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. So let's go ahead and let's look at this solo, and let's look for rhythmical patterns, accent patterns, and any type of repeating figures throughout the entire thing. Okay, so the first thing that I'm looking at and that I see is the accent patterns in the very beginning. Now, the accent pattern, I'm noticing that it's not just a random accent pattern. It is using the 3-note, 16th note pattern, where there's an accent on the first note. So we have 1, so it's 3 16th notes with an accent on the first beat, and we see that a lot. We see it in measure 2, we see it in measure 3, we see it in measure 4, we see it in measure 7, and just keep going. I see it in measure 12, I see it in measure 25, I see it in measure 26, and that's about it. So that needs to be something that we practice, is the 1, the 3-note pattern. 1, and E, 4 E and a 1, and E, 4 E and a 1. We need to make sure that we can play that really, really well and in time. Okay, going back to measure 8, the 1 E, a 2, which is still kind of following that same type of pattern a little bit, because the emphasis may be on beat 1 and beat 2, but we have the 1 E, a 2. We have those 2 16th notes, which is very rhythmically compatible with that accent pattern that we just had. Now, I see it's in measure 8. It is also in measure 20. It is also in measure 23. Looking forward, we have measure 15, where we have 1 E and 2 E and. Measure 16, we have 1 and a 2, Now, I realize that there is a 5-stroke roll there, but we're always going to practice our rolls with the bass and with the skeleton. And then in beat 2 of measure 16, we have 1, which is exactly the same as the accent pattern that we have already been talking about. And then in measure 19 and 20, we have a broken rhythm, 1 and a, and 1 E, a 2 and. So make sure that you're really feeling that beat 2 and that you're not rushing the end of beat 2 in measure 19. Measure 23 and 24 shouldn't be too difficult, and that rhythm should be very familiar to you. That is your basic double beat rhythm. It's just natural sticked. 1 E, a 2, and E, and 4. Now, I am going to kind of throw in measure 28 in here because it's a triplet, and it's the only triplet that's in here. It's a Swiss Army triplet. I know we're not on rudiments yet, but that's just something that kind of pops out to me because there is no other triplet in the entire piece. So that really stuck out to me as a sore thumb. Okay, so now I'm looking to see if there's any actual rhythmical patterns that are repeating that's like from a compositional standpoint. Not just a small accent pattern like one on a micro level. I'm looking on a very macro level now. Are there any sections of the solo that are actually repeating? And I don't really see anything other than measures 1 and 2 and 25 and 26. Yeah, that's kind of the only thing that's really kind of repeating. You could say that letter C is a restatement of the very first line in letter A, and you could call it A prime if you wanted to. And it just has like a little tag at the end to let you know that, hey, the solo's over. You know, kind of thing. But other than that, that is what is immediately sticking out to me when it comes to rhythmical patterns, accent patterns, and any type of compositional patterns. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the dynamics. What are the peak dynamics? What are the smallest dynamics? Do we have any crescendos, decrescendos? Is there anything in this piece that we're going to have to kind of musically figure out? Anything like that. So starting out in the very beginning, we are forte all the way until measure 8, where we have a crescendo going into a double forte. We're going to talk a little bit about that and why that might be tricky later. And then we have B, which is in contrasting style because it's mezzo forte. I know that's still kind of loud, but considering the double forte that we just came from, it's pretty quiet, relatively speaking. And then in measure 16, we have a sub piano on the of 2. Sub piano means to get suddenly soft. So that means that we're getting suddenly soft on the of 2 of measure 16, not on beat 1 of measure 17, where the crescendo actually starts. So we're starting soft right before we hit the crescendo. So we're crescendoing to an unknown dynamic, and then we're decrescendoing again to an unknown dynamic. And we'll figure that out. That's some musicality that we'll have to try to figure out exactly what we're going to do. And then we have an FSZ rim shot, which again just means really loud and short. Going to measure 21, where we have another crescendo over 2 bars going from piano to double forte. This is going to be pretty loud, and it's all paradiddles. So just a kind of a thought about that. Like remember how I said that eventually you'll do all of these at once? So I'm thinking that, okay, I need to be able to play my paradiddles, but I need to be able to play them like, you know, as a crescendo kind of thing. So that goes to the double forte, measure 23, which stays loud until the FSZ, which is going to be another rim shot. I don't know why they didn't put a house top. They probably should have. I mean, it's already a rim. And then at C, we are dropping down to forte, so from stupid loud to just loud. And we're going to stay forte from C all the way to the end. And that's what I see from a dynamic standpoint. Now, rudimentally, I see flams, I see 9-stroke rolls, I see flam taps, I see 5-stroke rolls, I see 17-stroke rolls, I see single paradiddles, and I see a 7-stroke roll and a Swiss Army triplets. Okay, so like I said before, the idea is to be able to do all of these basically at once because they all kind of coincide with one another. Like at measure 21, I'm not just seeing the paradiddles, and I'm not just seeing the dynamics. I'm seeing that I have a crescendo on paradiddles. So when I go and I practice my paradiddles, I'm going to practice them really soft and really loud, and then I'm going to practice crescendoing them from piano to forte without any accents, because that's what I have in the solo. Same thing in measure 11. I have flam taps with no accents. Naturally, flam taps have accents and are supposed to feel very round and bubbly. Well, these look like they might need to feel a little bit more stiff. So when I practice my flam taps, I'm going to practice them at this dynamic, and I'm going to practice them with and without accents. And that's kind of how it goes when you look at a piece of music, and in all reality, it shouldn't take you much more than anywhere between 1 to 3 minutes in your head to break all of this stuff down. And I really hope that these videos are kind of helping you being able to do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's listen to this and see how well I did. Okay, so we have those 3-note accent patterns. Okay, so let's stop it right there. Look at measure 8 where we have that crescendo going into the double forte. This is going to be tricky because we're starting at forte and then we are crescendoing into a double forte, but we're starting the crescendo from 2 accents. The note before the crescendo is an accent and the first note of the crescendo is an accent, which means that the second note puts at this really awkward spot of, is it louder than the first note? Like, how is this supposed to work? And in all reality, if you look at it from just a number standpoint, you have 3 notes, 3 hits, tut, 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 just 3 notes in order to crescendo into a double forte. So that little measure right there is actually way more challenging than it looks. So don't be discouraged if like it's all sounds loud. What I would do and what I wish I would have done, because I don't think I did it very well in the video, I wish I would have basically negated that first accent on measure 8, or at least just kind of dropped it down so that way it was lower than the accent that came right before it. And looking at it now, the crescendo to the double forte is way more important than that one accent. So just kind of let that be in the back of your mind. Yes, you want to hear the accent, you want to hear some differentiation, but it's happening so fast, and what really matters is that you're getting that crescendo. Also remember, you only have 3 notes to crescendo it anyway. So I mean, you know, that's what matters, is the crescendo, not the accent. All right, let's keep going. We're starting it at B. Okay, we got some flam taps with no accents. Got a nice dynamic contrast. Okay, I'm gonna stop it right there. That was a really good crescendo. Really good crescendo. I don't really like the way my snare drum sounds in this solo for some reason. Maybe that was a miking issue, maybe that was a tuning issue or something, but in all reality, the dynamic was good. The crescendo and the decrescendo, those were good. Now in measure 18, measure 18, we're crescendoing to something blank. A rule of thumb with this is that you crescendo to either whatever the last loud dynamic was, or whatever the last loudest dynamic was. In this instance, the last loud dynamic was mezzo forte. So I could have crescendoed to a mezzo forte, but the last loudest dynamic was a double forte. So I could have crescendoed either to a mezzo forte or a double forte, especially considering that you're just going up and hitting it for a brief second, maybe just 1 note, and just coming back down. Now we're coming back down, and you're sitting there thinking, okay, well, where am I coming back down to? Where am I going? Because it's not labeled. So this is another musicality question that you have to answer. What you want to do is decrescendo to whatever the last quiet dynamic was. The last quiet dynamic was piano. So I'm going to make sure that I decrescendo down to a piano, especially because on the end of 2 in measure 20, we have an FSZ, and it is a rim shot. So that's going to sound really cool. Okay, so let's stop there. There's a lot going on in this one line. First off, do you remember when I was talking about how I look at all of those 3 criterias all at once? So when the first glance at measure 21 and 22, I didn't just see paradiddles. I saw paradiddles that had a crescendo on them. Anybody can play paradiddles. Some people can play paradiddles with no accents, but fewer people can play paradiddles and actually have either an accent pattern on them or have some type of dynamic on them, because that makes them way more difficult. So this is a really good instance to make sure that you have mastered your rudiments, so that way you can play them however that they need to be played. In this instance, they're being played from piano to mezzo forte, and there's going to be a crescendo in between them. And you have 2 full measures. So that is 16 notes. You have 16 notes. That's a lot of notes in order to get a really nice crescendo. And you need it to sound extremely even as well. So you got a lot of things going against you in order to make that happen. Now, look back at measure 23. Let's watch this again. You'll notice that I used a lot more arm here, and that's for a few reasons. One, because it's double forte, but it's not just double forte. It's double forte coming from a crescendo that's not just a crescendo. It's a crescendo of paradiddles with no accents. Now, no matter how good you get, and actually it's kind of ironic, the better you actually get, you will always hear that paradiddle sticking. Now, the better you get, the less other people will hear it, and the more even that they will hear. But the better you get, you will always hear that underlying paradiddle sticking, and it'll just kind of be subliminal, and that's okay. But that's what we have here. We have a paradiddle sticking, we have a crescendo from piano to double forte going into the next section, which is going to be forte. And remember that dynamics that are close to each other, it's hard to find a difference between them. Piano to mezzo piano or forte to mezzo forte. So I wanted this double forte to sound really, really strong and really, really big. We're also coming from 2 measures of straight 16th notes, again being crescendoed, to broken 16th note rhythmical pattern. And to me, I felt like the music was leading us up to this point. I just felt like musically that's what needed to happen. So I hit that double forte just a little bit harder than I normally would have. And that made this line really kind of pop out. And that also made C sound a little bit better in contrast because I was going from a double forte to a forte. Let's continue. And then we have the very last measure with the Swiss Army triplet. I know it seems like it's out of character for the entire piece, but it's really just a little tag to signify, hey, the music is over, I'm done, you can clap now kind of thing. But since it is a triplet and it's the only triplet in the entire piece, it's very important to make sure that you are rhythmically accurate and you have the integrity of the tempo, it stays intact. Okay, so that's it. All in all, this is a really fun solo. It's not too difficult, but I can definitely tell that we have gone a little bit of a step up. We're still in the easy category, but we're definitely no longer in the beginner category, especially with those hand-to-hand accents and things like that. This is the first solo where we've really kind of seen that going on. So I recommend this solo if you're trying to figure out that hand-to-hand accent, especially with those 3-note patterns, 16-note patterns, and working on your dynamics. It'd be a really good solo for you. Okay, so that's it for the video. Thanks for staying all the way through it. Thanks for all the love and support on the channel. I really appreciate it. The channel has really grown, and it's pretty nice. Please like, share this video, comment down below. Let me know how you think and other things that you would like me to do or anything kind of thing like that. And as always, Makla Chaka, boom, boom.